Hello everyone, and welcome to a new series I am starting here on YouTube, in which I'm going to analyse the production of certain songs and albums. Today we're going to start off with AC/DC's Back in Black, which I think, for the time especially, is one of the best produced albums I've ever heard. Let's give you some background on it first. It was produced by the South African producer Mutt Lange, who has produced loads of artists throughout his time. He's produced Muse, he produced Drones. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. And Shania Twain. He also produced Shania Twain. Before any of that happened, Mutt Lange worked with AC/DC not just on Back in Black, but he also worked on Highway to Hell, their previous album before it. And this album was recorded at Compass Point Studios in Nassau, in the Bahamas. A set of studios which sadly is no longer open, but during its time it became legendary because AC/DC recorded there, of course, as well as Iron Maiden, Brian Eno, David Bowie, Mariah Carey, Diana Ross, just a list of ridiculous music names, all recorded at Compass Point Studios. And that's all I've got for this initial set of notes. Let's waste no more time in getting to analyse the production of AC/DC's legendary song, Back in Black. And the whole album. We'll get to a couple of other songs as well. So here we go. Back in Black. So straight off the bat, it sounds, well, just really, really good. It sounds crystal clear and yet punchy at the same time. It's not a hollow sound. It's really, really kind of in your face, and you can hear those guitars really clearly. But also the drums as well. Phil Rudd, fantastic drummer as well. He always, you can easily criticise AC/DC for doing the most simple, 1, 2, 3, 4 drum beat in every song. But that guy, Phil Rudd especially, is a metronome. They didn't use a click track to record this because the engineer, Tony Platt, who worked with Mutt Lange in recording the album, there's a fantastic interview with Tony Platt, which I'll link in the description, where I've gotten some of this information from, and he just calls Phil Rudd a human metronome, basically, because he's that on point. But already, just from the intro, you can hear how crystal clear and yet punchy it is, and that is really good production right from the off. And then the vocals come in. Brian Johnson. It helps a producer massively if the musicians know what they're doing. And Brian Johnson, this was his debut album. He said since that he was quite nervous going in, replacing Bon Scott so soon as well after he died. But he really puts his all into it, all his energy, and it's part of a producer's job to get the performance out of the musicians, and it's fair to say that they really did with this, and it really helps with the production on this album. And talking of performance, again, we're going to compare this later to another song, also off of this album, but as a cover version that just doesn't sound as good because the performances aren't as good. You can hear how the vocals, they're clear, but they're not quite as forward as you'd hear in other places. Not in other places, in other songs, on other albums, because so often the vocal is the focal point, the vocal is the focal. But not with AC/DC. AC/DC are a guitar band. They are a rock, loud guitar band. And that comes through on the production, where the predominant force is clearly the guitars. The bass is quite far back, but it's there enough that it's giving it that, bass. It's important to note that this song was recorded live. And by the way, I'm sorry I keep pausing it. If that's something that annoys you, these aren't going to be the videos for you. But I want to make sure I get my point across, so I will keep pausing it just to make sure I do that properly. But yeah, if it sounds really lively for a studio recording, that is because this album was recorded live, by which I mean all the musicians were playing together like they would on stage. As opposed to the other type of recording there is, like multi-track recording, where musicians, the guitarist will do his bit, and the drummer will do his bit, and the vocalist will do his bit, and it's all separate, and it's done to click tracks, or, often the drummer will do their bit first, so that beat is there, and then the guitarist will follow on over the top, but and both types of recording, live and multi-track separately, they have their advantages and disadvantages. But of course, one of the main advantages of live recording is that the musicians can all play off each other and get that vibe into it, and that's what this album has in abundance because of the way they recorded it. You could hear the passion. Brian really going for it, making sure that his presence is well known. Trying to obviously prove himself to AC/DC's fans that he is the man to replace Bon, and he does it so well. Now we get to the solos. So I'm going to pause it there, and again, I know some people get really pissed off if you pause in the middle of the solo. Sorry. Yeah, so the solos were recorded separately afterwards, I believe. And Tony Platt, again the engineer, in his interview, he talks about how it used 2 amps, one live and one dead. Now, the difference between those two are you've got if it's a live sound, it's in a room, let's just say, made of lots of wood, lots of reflective surfaces, and so it'd be quite reverby and quite a live sound. Think about when you shout in a church, it reverbs around. It's not quite to that extent, that's an extreme example, but that's what it means by live sound. And when he means a dead sound, there's an amp in there that's surrounded by lots of carpet, just absorptive, is that the word? Absorptive surfaces. So anything soft, basically. This would be absorptive. Curtains, as I say, carpet. And that means that no sound reflects off anything, and it's just a dead sound. Only the sound coming out of the amp. And when they recorded the solos, it was put through basically 2 amps, one live, one dead. And they mixed them together to get the solo sound that they get in the guitar solos on here. For 1980, this is a seriously impressive sounding album. In fact, for 2021, it's an impressive sounding album. There's nothing much more to talk about Back in Black there, so we're going to pause it there so this video just doesn't go on and on. We're going to look at Shoot to Thrill. Actually, first, we'll look at Sin City, so you can just compare what you just heard from Back in Black to Sin City, which was from Power Age 2 years beforehand. So this is only 2 years beforehand, but if you listen to this now, I mean, right from the off, you could hear how much rawer it is. It doesn't have the power, it doesn't have the crispness of Back in Black. It's much rawer, and it's much thinner. It's a much thinner sound. It's a great track. It's a brilliant track. But the production just isn't quite on the same level as Back in Black would be. It's clear enough, to be fair, but when you're doing something like this, rock music, you want that punch in there, and the production is so thin that it doesn't have the punch that you would like. It's ironic this album was called Power Rage. There's a lot of power in their music, but the production just didn't quite match it at this point in time. That was just a quick look. We're not going to go too much into that, but you can hear the difference between Back in Black and Sin City. Now we are going to look at Shoot to Thrill. Let's listen to the original for a bit first, and I want you to listen specifically to the rhythm guitar. Specifically the bit in the left here. Now that playing is important to the feel of the track, because when you're going that little downstroke before the main chord makes all the difference in the energy of the song. It really helps keep it flowing and keep it alive. It really helps keep it really like up there with how alive it is. Now compare that to the Hailstorm cover version of Shoot to Thrill. Hailstorm I love. Brilliant band, really know how to rock it. And you know, you only have to listen to I Miss the Misery or Love Bites and you can hear how energetic they can be. Which is why I was so confused and disappointed when I heard their version of Shoot to Thrill, and it sounds so dull and so boring in comparison. And part of that is that the rhythm guitar lacks the downstroke, and it takes so much out of it. Listen to this. Damn, bam, bam, bam. It sounds robotic, it sounds static. And this is what I mean, it's the producer's job to get a really good performance out of the musicians. This is poor from the guitarist of Hailstorm. And it's a shame, because they can do so much better. But this sounds so boring in comparison to AC/DC. Even the bass in there, it's literally just going bum, 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 bum. I want to see if the original does that. Hang on. I'm not sure. Let's see if the original does that. Again, listen to the bass in there. That's different. The bass goes da 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 da. It's keeping the song flowing. Listen to this in the bass here. Bum 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 ba da dum ba dum bum ba da ba da. As opposed to the bass in the Hailstorm Shoot to Thrill version, which is just... Hang on. It's just going bum, 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 bum. There's no energy in this recording. There's no life in it, and it's a real shame. Lizzie Hale putting in a great performance, but she's the only one doing so. The drums! Again, the drums in the chorus. They just sound like he's not putting any effort in at all. He just sounds like he is whacking drums and not actually putting any effort in. That's enough of that. It's just no good in terms of the performance of the musicians, and that is partly the fault of the musicians, but also partly the fault of the producer for not getting the performance out of the musicians in there. But we're going to just go back to Back in Black one last time. And again, I've talked about how good the quality of the sound is. As I keep saying, it's punchy and yet crystal clear. It's a brilliant balance. The guitar tones are perfect. Absolutely dead on. Now compare that to Iron Maiden. This album, Iron Maiden's first album, was released in the same year, 1980. So this is comparable. And as much as I love this album, Iron Maiden are my favourite band. You're going to be seeing a lot of Iron Maiden if you start watching my videos. But the production on this album, and everyone in the band pretty much has said so since, is pretty poor. Because their producer, Will Malone, they've said, basically did nothing. And you can hear it. The guitar tone isn't metally enough. There was a bit of, there was a bit of crackling there, so a bit of overstepping. Now I'm trying peaking. That was it. There's a bit of peaking, which led to overdrive, but it sounded a bit off. Again, it's clear enough, but it lacks punch. It's thin. It's a paper-thin recording. I still think it's a better job than the Hailstorm cover version of Shoot to Thrill, because you can still feel the passion and energy coming from the players, and you can tell that they're really passionate. But the sound of it, the sonics of it, are really, really thin, and that's a shame. And that was the same year as Back in Black. So, overall, I think we can just safely say that Back in Black is just a fantastic recording for its year. It's exactly what AC/DC needed, because they needed to take that step up. I think from Power Rage to Highway to Hell, that was a bit of a step up, because Highway to Hell did use Mutt Lange. But Back in Black is one of the best produced albums, I think, of all time. And it fully deserves its place as one of the best selling albums of all time. Not just for the quality of the songs, but for the quality of the production that happened as well, with Mutt Lange, Tony Platt, the engineer, and everyone else involved. It's just a fantastic record. Something I forgot to mention, if I go back to the solo, if you listen to the frequency range of it, the solos are... they've got a bit more in the mid-range to help them stick out. Because the human ear actually focuses more on the mid-range than anywhere else. So you've got the clarity of the guitars on the outside, which I think have a fair amount of high end. And to counteract that, because if they use the exact same EQ for the guitars of the rhythm section, they're going to clash. So they put a bit more middle into the guitars in the solo, because probably around the same area that they might have put Brian Johnson's vocal on. But because Brian Johnson's vocal isn't being sung at the same time, there's no clash of the frequencies. So the guitar solo takes up that space. And that makes everything stand out from each other. That's a really key point of getting good production, making sure everything can be heard and everything has its place and there's not too much overlap of frequency. You can hear how it stands out. It's a fantastic production job. There's no two ways about it. So, I think I'm going to leave the video there. But let's just listen to the rest of this first. Again, the solo again. And you could hear those mids making it pop out from the rhythms. And then there's a fade out. You don't hear fade outs much these days, do you? Fade outs kind of went out of fashion during the 80s. But I'm all for them. It just means slightly more of great songs. But yeah, that is my first production analysis video, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you do think, because I did quite a lot of jumping around in this video from like one song to another. A bit of pausing of the videos as well. And I recognise that some people might not like that. So let me know what you think of the format of this video, whether you like me jumping around a bit and comparing, or whether you'd rather me just focus on a track, maybe pause it a bit less to make it flow a bit better. We'll see how it turns out. But in any case, thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more production analysis, I've got a few in mind, but also leave a comment of anything you'd like me to review in the future. So that's about it, yeah. All that sort of stuff YouTubers say, like, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever. And hopefully I shall see you again in the future for another production analysis. Thank you, have a great day, and goodbye.